An internet search for the term controlled opposition returns over 500,000 results. But these results are almost entirely blog or forum posts from individuals discussing the topic. The state of affairs seems a little odd to me, since controlled opposition seems to be a running theme throughout human history. It certainly appears to be in use today, although you won't hear anybody talking about it in the mainstream. Hi everybody. In the absence of any authoritative work on the subject of controlled opposition, I'm going to attempt to define the term by discussing what appear to be the two main types of controlled opposition. In the hopes of fostering clarity, I've labeled these simply Type 1 controlled opposition and Type 2 controlled opposition. The distinction may reduce the possibility of miscommunication when discussing this topic going forward. The one definition for controlled opposition I was able to find while searching online that seems to be of any value was from urbandictionary.com, and it's this. A controlled opposition is a protest movement that is actually being led by government agents. Nearly all governments in history have employed this technique to trick and subdue their adversaries, notably Vladimir Lenin, who said the best way to control the opposition is to lead it ourselves. Now, the person who posted this definition to Urban Dictionary goes by the aliases, so you're probably not going to see this definition cited in a policy journal anytime soon. Furthermore, I haven't been able to establish that Vladimir Lenin ever actually made that statement, but this definition is a start and not necessarily a bad one. However, there's more to the concept of controlled opposition than government-created fake protest movements. The Urban Dictionary definition that we're looking at here is really an example of the type of controlled opposition where the controlling entity creates an opposing entity, or perhaps infiltrates and takes over an opposing entity or organization, for the purposes of co-opting those political forces that are or would oppose the controlling entity. Now, I know that's a mouthful, so let's take a look at something easier to relate to. I'd like to take a look at the false competition between the Harlem Globetrotters and their singular opponent for over 60 years, the Washington Generals. Just in case you aren't familiar with the Harlem Globetrotters, they're an exhibition basketball team that combines athleticism, theater, and comedy. At least that's according to their Wikipedia page. Well, from 1953 to 1995, the Globetrotters played only the Washington Generals. Now, sometimes the Generals players did dress out as other fictional teams, but they always played the same team, and it was predominantly they were dressed out as the Washington Generals. The Generals not only played the role of the straight men to the Globetrotters' basketball showboating and comedic antics, they almost always lost to the Globetrotters. Now, these weren't real basketball games, of course, and the Washington Generals weren't really playing to win. This was all just part of the show. And that's basically what I'm calling Type 1 controlled opposition. In the political context, you have one entity, for example, the government, a corporation, etc., that employs people to create a false opponent or infiltrate an existing opposing entity in order to create the illusion of a contest or conflict to the exclusion of a real one. The false opponent will also attract anyone who might be interested in opposing the first entity or its agenda, but ultimately will render their efforts and the opposing cause impotent and prevent any real change from ever occurring. Furthermore, the existence of the false opponent will also impede, if not completely prevent, the natural development of any other real opponent, as it will co-opt any new talent that wants to move in that direction and dissuade others from competing with it. The second type of controlled opposition is exemplified by another sports entertainment franchise, World Wrestling Entertainment, formerly known as the World Wrestling Federation. If you've ever watched a WWE match, you know there's a lot more going on than just wrestling, and you also hopefully know that it's all scripted and choreographed. There's drama, and lots of it, providing spectators a testosterone-filled soap opera with characters to root for and characters to hate. As in national or international politics, coalitions are created and dissolved as different factions constantly vie for supremacy in the WWE universe. Sometimes characters shift from being good to bad, and vice versa, as the wrestlers fight it out for a coveted WWE Championship belt. At the top of all this drama sits the McMahon family, who own and also partake in the drama themselves. And I'm trying to find, there we go. There's a shot of Jim McMahon partaking in the drama. Now, the WWE fans understand that this literally is the McMahon's universe, and they pull all of the strings. What I'm calling Type 2 controlled opposition works in much the same way, but not for the purposes of entertainment. Instead of one entity controlling its opposition, as we saw in Type 1 controlled opposition, there is one entity or group that operates in the shadows and controls most, if not all, of the major players. This control group co-ops existing leadership, or it cultivates talented and ambitious people to occupy leadership positions in society. These control group puppets are permitted to pursue their pet causes and agendas in politics, government, industry, etc., so long as it does not conflict with or threaten the control group's agenda. But the puppet's first duty will always be to the control group and its agenda. Naturally occurring debate and competition on issues that do not impact the control group's agenda will foster legitimacy and public belief in the control system. The debate on non-control group issues will also give the masses someone and or something to root for or against, just like in the WWE, and will also help keep them distracted from the reality of the control system. The control group remains hidden behind layers of people and organizations. Most of the people working for the control system organizations are unaware they are doing so. But when push comes to shove, the control group interest will always trump the public interest, because they control most, if not all of the players. If and when public dissatisfaction with the politics of the day approaches a boiling point, the control group will supply seemingly new leadership and or a new movement that promises change. But the new leadership will ultimately serve the control group's agenda and stifle any real change from ever occurring. Is controlled opposition real? Well, we know Type 1 controlled opposition is real because we've seen it in operation in the modern era. From government infiltration of social justice movements in the 1960s like the COINTEL program, to billionaire funding of grassroots organizations in the new millennium. There is no question that Type 1 controlled opposition is real. But Type 2 controlled opposition is more insidious and much more difficult to prove. Probably because many of those who would knowingly participate in such a vast conspiracy would have to be controlled themselves, probably through a combination of carrot and stick. I know it's disturbing to consider the possibility that our leaders are all controlled by a small group of people for the purposes of controlling the rest of us. But you can't deny that people with wealth and power are naturally going to seek to work together to protect and expand their wealth and power. And it would naturally follow that at least some of the wealthy and powerful elite are willing to manipulate people and events to their advantage, even to the detriment of society at large. But I think whether you can prove the existence of controlled opposition isn't so important. What's important is being aware that it is possible. Because in the end, there's no hope of ever escaping the prison if you're unwilling to consider it even exists. As always, links are in the description below. I'd like to know what you think, so please post a comment. And don't forget to click like and subscribe if you haven't already. Please also visit my site at politicalnewsreport.com and subscribe there so we can stay in touch in case someone deems my channel enemy propaganda. Thanks for watching. Take care, and remember, the political is personal.